the annals of history, there are those whose names are whispered with fear, revulsion, and morbid fascination. They are the predators who walk among us, leaving trails of devastation and terror in their wake. This is their story. Jack the Ripper, the faceless spectre who haunted the gaslit streets of Victorian London, leaving horror in his wake. Aileen Wuornos, the highway killer who claimed vengeance as her motive. Dennis Nilsen, a man who turned his home into a tomb for the innocent. Dr. Harold Shipman, the trusted physician whose crimes made him the deadliest of them all. Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, whose reign of terror spanned decades. John Wayne Gacy, the Clown Killer, whose mask of laughter concealed horrors beyond comprehension. In the isolated Andes, darkness fell in a place where escape was a dream. Ted Bundy, the charismatic monster who lured his victims with charm and cunning. The Boston Strangler, whose name brought a city to its knees. Jeffrey Dahmer, the cannibal killer whose crimes defied belief. Ed Gein, the grave robber whose grotesque deeds inspired tales of cinematic horror. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, who made the City of Angels a place of nightmares. The Red Ripper, Andrei Chikatilo, whose monstrous acts shocked the Soviet Union. And the Zodiac Killer, the cryptic enigma who continues to taunt the world from the shadows. These are the most evil men and women in the world. Their stories are a window into the darkest recesses of the human mind and the unspeakable horrors that dwell there.
Was Jack the Ripper real or just a myth? This question has puzzled historians, criminologists, and true crime enthusiasts for over a century. In the late 19th century, London found itself in the grip of a terror unlike anything it had ever experienced before. The city, a bustling metropolis at the heart of the British Empire, was suddenly plunged into a state of fear and uncertainty. The cause? A series of gruesome murders committed in the Whitechapel district, each more horrifying than the last. These were not ordinary crimes. No, they were calculated, brutal, and shockingly intimate in their violence. And they were all, apparently, the work of a single individual. This person was not known by his face, for he managed to remain unseen, a ghost in the crowded streets of London. He was known only by a name that would soon become synonymous with terror and mystery: Jack the Ripper. This elusive figure, this phantom in the night, became the subject of countless stories, theories, and investigations. The newspapers were filled with lurid accounts of his crimes. The populace was gripped with fear, and the authorities were at a loss. Was this fearsome character a real person, a cold-blooded killer stalking the streets of Whitechapel? Or was he an invention, a boogeyman created by a sensationalist media and a public all too willing to believe in the monstrous? In the years that followed, the legend of Jack the Ripper only grew. His identity remained a mystery, his crimes unsolved. And yet his name lived on, passed down through the generations, a chilling reminder of a time when a shadowy figure held an entire city in the grip of fear. Today, we find ourselves drawn to this enigma, this character from the darkest corners of our history. We are compelled to ask, who was Jack the Ripper? Was he a man, a myth, or something in between? Let's delve into the murky past to shine a light on the enigma that is Jack the Ripper. In the autumn of 1888, the city of London was gripped by a series of gruesome murders. The quiet, foggy lanes of the Whitechapel district became a chilling stage for a deadly spectacle. The first incident that linked to the infamous Jack the Ripper was the murder of Mary Ann Nichols. Her body, found on a grimy street, bore the horrifying signature of the killer: a slashed throat and severe abdominal mutilations. Nichols' death was not an isolated incident. Over the next few months, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly would meet similar fates. Each woman was found brutally slain, their bodies mutilated in a way that suggested the work of a skilled, or at least knowledgeable hand. The nature of these killings was so shocking, so unlike anything the people of London had seen before, that panic began to seep into the very fabric of the city. The media, too, played its part in stoking the flames of fear. Newspapers were filled with lurid details of the crimes, each report more sensational than the last. The unknown murderer was given a name, Jack the Ripper, a moniker that sent shivers down the spines of London's residents. The press coverage was relentless, the public's appetite for the macabre seemingly insatiable. The authorities were under immense pressure to find the person responsible for these heinous acts. Despite their best efforts, the killer remained elusive, slipping away into the shadows of the city after each ghastly act. The inability of the police to apprehend Jack the Ripper only served to heighten the fear and tension that had gripped the city. These terrifying incidents marked the beginning of the legend of Jack the Ripper. The name would come to symbolize the embodiment of evil, a phantom that lurked in the darkest corners of Victorian London, forever casting a long, sinister shadow over the city's history. The identity of Jack the Ripper has remained a mystery, with a pool of suspects that is as diverse as it is baffling. In the grimy underbelly of Victorian London, many figures emerged as potential culprits. Among the most notorious was Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber who suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. Despite his mental instability, he was never formally linked to the Whitechapel murders. Another suspect was Montague John Druitt, a barrister and schoolteacher. His own family suspected him of being the Ripper due to his supposed sexual insanity and his untimely death shortly after the last murder. Yet the timing of his demise remains the only circumstantial evidence against him. Then there was Francis Tumblety, an American quack doctor who had a well-known disdain for women and a collection of uteruses. His peculiarities and misogynistic tendencies painted him as a strong suspect. However, no direct evidence ever connected him to the brutal killings. The list of suspects didn't stop there. It expanded to include local butchers, slaughterhouse workers, and even members of the royal family. Prince Albert Victor, the Duke of Clarence, was implicated by a theory that suggested the murders were a cover-up for a royal scandal. Despite its sensational nature, this theory lacks substantial proof. With such a wide spectrum of suspects, the investigations were mired in speculation and hearsay. The lack of concrete evidence and the primitive state of forensic science at the time only added to the confusion. The reality was that anyone in blood-stained attire, which was common due to the era's prevalent slaughterhouses, could be suspected. While some suspects were more plausible than others, none could be definitively linked to the crimes. Theories abounded, but the truth seemed to slip further into the foggy alleyways of Whitechapel. The Ripper, whoever he was, had skillfully evaded capture and left a legacy of fear and fascination that lingers to this day. Despite the numerous suspects, the true identity of Jack the Ripper remains shrouded in mystery. Adding to the mystery and fear were a series of letters, allegedly written by the Ripper himself. These letters, saturated with chilling details and marked with a signature that would become infamous, were sent to various media outlets and police authorities during the height of the Whitechapel murders. The content of these letters was as unsettling as the crimes themselves. The sender reveled in the horror of the acts, describing them with a disturbing level of enjoyment. The letters also contained predictions of future crimes, adding an additional layer of terror to an already fearful city. Perhaps the most famous of these correspondences is the From Hell letter, which was received by George Lusk, the leader of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. Accompanied by a small box containing half a human kidney, the letter's author claimed to have fried and eaten the other half. This gruesome letter, more than any other, sent shivers down the spines of the Victorian public. The impact of these letters on the public was profound. They created a sense of panic and dread that permeated through the streets of London. They also influenced the investigation, as authorities were led on a wild goose chase, attempting to trace the author through handwriting analysis and postal marks. But were these letters authentic? Or were they the work of opportunistic hoaxers, capitalizing on the public's fear and fascination? Some experts argue that the letters' intimate knowledge of the crimes suggests they could only have been written by the killer. Others counter that the details could have been gleaned from newspaper reports, and the letters were likely the work of journalists seeking to sell more papers. Regardless of their authenticity, there's no denying the impact these letters had on the legend of Jack the Ripper. They introduced a name that would echo through the annals of criminal history, and they amplified the terror of a city already gripped by fear. Whether genuine or hoaxes, these letters played a crucial role in shaping the legend of Jack the Ripper. Over a century later, the legacy of Jack the Ripper endures, captivating the minds of people around the world. The spectre of the Ripper has transcended time, embedding itself deeply within our cultural fabric. His mysterious identity, the gruesome nature of his crimes, and the enigma surrounding his letters have inspired countless interpretations across various mediums. From the foggy, gaslit streets of Victorian London, Jack the Ripper has journeyed far beyond the confines of Whitechapel. The world of literature has seen an array of novels, plays, and short stories, each offering their unique take on the Ripper's tale. He has been portrayed as a monstrous villain, a tortured soul, and even as an anti-hero. Each narrative, whether it humanizes or demonizes him, adds another layer to the already complex Ripper legend. The silver screen and television haven't been immune to the Ripper's influence either. From noir detective films to modern crime series, Jack the Ripper has been a recurring character, often used to symbolize the darker side of humanity. His story has been reimagined through the lens of various genres, from horror to drama, and even romance. Even in pop culture, the Ripper's presence is felt. His name has been used in music, video games, and graphic novels, and his image has been immortalized in countless works of art. But why does the mystery of Jack the Ripper continue to captivate us? Perhaps it's our fascination with the macabre, or our desire to solve the unsolvable. Or perhaps it is the allure of the unknown, the thrill of the chase, and the tantalizing possibility of uncovering the truth that keeps us enthralled. Whether a man or a myth, Jack the Ripper has left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness. His legacy is a testament to the enduring power of mystery, the allure of the unknown, and our insatiable curiosity about the dark corners of human nature. Despite extensive investigations and numerous theories, the mystery of Jack the Ripper remains unsolved. As we peel back the layers of this enduring enigma, we find ourselves entangled in a web of questions without clear answers. The foggy streets of Victorian London, the gruesome Whitechapel murders, the chilling letters, and the multitude of suspects. Each element adds to the complexity of the mystery that is Jack the Ripper. While the macabre dance of death that played out in the autumn of 1888 was undoubtedly real, the identity of the man behind the moniker remains shrouded in uncertainty. Over a century of speculation has given birth to a multitude of theories, each more compelling than the last. From local butchers to members of the royal family, the list of potential culprits is as diverse as it is perplexing. As we grapple with the question of Jack the Ripper's true identity, we must also consider the role of the media in shaping the narrative. The letters, whether genuine or fabricated, heightened the sense of terror and fueled public fascination. This fascination persists today, with the Ripper's tale continuing to captivate audiences worldwide. The legacy of Jack the Ripper extends far beyond the realm of true crime, infiltrating literature, film, and pop culture. He has become a symbol of the dark underbelly of the Victorian era, a spectre haunting the annals of crime history. Yet the allure of the Ripper's story lies not in its horror, but in its indeterminacy. The tantalizing possibility of uncovering the truth keeps us returning to the scene of the crime, time and again. Despite the passage of time, the quest for answers persists. New theories continue to emerge, each promising to shed light on this age-old mystery. Yet the face of Jack the Ripper remains hidden in the shadows, eluding our grasp. As we continue to seek the truth, the question remains: was Jack the Ripper real, or just a product of our darkest fears?
The City of Angels, 1984. The streets thrum with life, but a sinister shadow lurks in the darkness. This was Los Angeles in the mid-'80s, a vibrant metropolis bathed in California sunshine. But beneath the surface, a chilling undercurrent was beginning to stir. As the city hummed with the hustle and bustle of daily life, an ominous specter was about to descend, one that would shatter the tranquility and forever taint the city's sunny disposition. It was in this setting that a figure of profound malevolence emerged, a man who would soon instill fear into the hearts of the city's residents. His name was Richard Ramirez, but he would soon become infamous as the Night Stalker. His reign of terror began almost inconspicuously. It was a crime that sent shockwaves through the community, a crime so heinous It defied comprehension. The victim was a young girl, just 9 years old. Innocence personified. Her life was brutally snuffed out in a horrifying act of violence. Her body, violated and beaten, was a grim testament to the sadistic proclivities of the man who would become one of America's most notorious serial killers. This was not a crime of necessity or desperation. It was a display of power, a proclamation of the terror that was to come. The city of Los Angeles, so often associated with dreams and aspirations, was about to become the playground of a nightmare. The first victim was a wake-up call, a dire warning of the darkness that had begun to infest the city's streets. The brutality of this initial crime was a precursor to a series of horrifying acts that would follow, acts that would hold the city hostage in a grip of fear for over a year. But back then, in the beginning, no one could have predicted the extent of the terror that was about to unfold. And so, the reign of terror of the one who would become known as the Night Stalker began. As the year wore on, a pattern began to emerge, a chilling signature that would soon strike fear into the hearts of Los Angeles residents. The Night Stalker, as he would later be dubbed, was not content with the shock and horror his first crime had already caused. A ghastly series of crimes followed, each one more brutal, more shocking than the last. The shocking details are enough to make one's blood run cold. The Night Stalker had a peculiar method of operation. He would break into people's homes, often in the dead of night when the city was asleep. His chosen weapons were as varied as they were savage. Handguns, knives, even a tire iron. No two crimes were exactly alike, but they all bore the same hallmark of extreme violence and sadistic pleasure. But it was not just the brutality of his crimes that left a mark. Richard Ramirez, the man behind the moniker, had a penchant for the occult. He was particularly fond of pentagrams, a symbol often associated with satanic practices. These eerie symbols began to appear at his crime scenes, a chilling signature that was as much a statement as it was a signature. His victims were chosen seemingly at random. Men, women, even children were not safe from his reign of terror. His crimes were not motivated by robbery or personal vendetta. They were acts of pure, unadulterated evil, committed for the sheer thrill of it. As the body count rose, so did the fear. Los Angeles, a city known for its glitz and glamour, was now under the shadow of a relentless predator. The city's residents lived in constant fear, never knowing if they would be his next target. The Night Stalker was not just a criminal. He was a symbol of the darkest corners of the human psyche, a living nightmare that had come to life. The city was in the grip of fear. A nocturnal predator was on the loose. As the body count rose, the police were under pressure to catch the perpetrator. The horrifying reign of the Night Stalker had the City of Angels in a vice grip of terror. The detectives on the case were working against the clock, their task made all the more daunting by the seemingly random nature of the attacks. The Night Stalker didn't discriminate. His victims ranged from the very young to the elderly, from various neighborhoods, both affluent and working class. He left behind a chilling signature at each crime scene, occult symbols that hinted at a deep-seated fascination with the macabre. This only added an additional layer of fear and confusion to an already complex investigation. Detectives were faced with a mounting number of crime scenes, each more gruesome than the last. The pressure from the public was immense. The fear and frustration were palpable. The city was on edge, its citizens desperate for the capture of the man who was disrupting their peace. The detectives worked tirelessly, following every lead, no matter how small. They studied the patterns of the attacks, the choice of victims, the occult symbols. They consulted with psychologists, criminal profilers, and even occult experts in their quest to understand the mind of the Night Stalker. Despite the challenges, the detectives remained undeterred. They knew they were not just dealing with an ordinary criminal, but a predator who reveled in the fear he instilled. They understood the gravity of their task and the necessity of catching this monster before he struck again. Yet, for all their determination and tireless efforts, the Night Stalker proved to be a formidable adversary. His attacks were unpredictable, his methods brutal, and his signature, the occult symbols, a disturbing reminder of his dark fascination. The detectives were dealing with a criminal unlike any they had encountered before. Despite their best efforts, the Night Stalker remained elusive. The investigation was proving to be a chilling game of cat and mouse, the stakes higher than ever. But the detectives were committed to their task. They knew they were the city's only hope against this nightmarish predator. The summer of 1985 was a summer of terror for the residents of Los Angeles. This was no ordinary summer. The sun-soaked city, renowned for its glitz and glamour, was held in the icy grip of fear. The Night Stalker was on the prowl, and no one knew where he would strike next. As the body count rose and the gruesome details of each crime scene were made public, a palpable dread descended upon the city. The City of Angels was now a city in fear. It was as if a dark cloud had settled over the sprawling metropolis, casting long, ominous shadows that seemed to lurk around every corner. Nightfall, once a time for relaxation and entertainment, had become a time of terror. Families huddled together, their eyes wide and hearts pounding, as they listened to the eerie silence of the night, broken only by the occasional distant siren or the rustling of leaves. Every creak of the floor, every gust of wind against the window, sent shivers down their spines. Home, once a sanctuary, had transformed into a fortress. Doors were double-locked, windows were bolted shut. People were buying guard dogs, installing security systems, and some even armed themselves. Neighbors kept a watchful eye on each other's homes, forming impromptu neighborhood watches. The city's vibrant nightlife took a hit too. Bars and clubs saw dwindling numbers as people chose the safety of their homes over socializing. The streets, usually buzzing with life, grew quieter as the night drew in. This was a time when the very fabric of community was tested. Yet amidst the fear and uncertainty, there was a sense of unity. People were looking out for each other, helping each other, standing together against the unseen menace that lurked in the shadows. The Night Stalker had not just instilled fear, he had invaded the very psyche of the city. But Los Angeles was resilient. Its people were defiant. They were not going to let fear rule their lives. They were determined to reclaim their city, their homes, their sense of security. Los Angeles was a city under siege. Everyone was a potential victim. But they were also survivors, ready to fight back, ready to stand up to the darkness and say no more. The reign of the Night Stalker was about to come to an end. The year was 1985, and Los Angeles, a city gripped by fear, was about to breathe a sigh of relief. Richard Ramirez, the man who had been terrorizing the city with his gruesome murders, was on the brink of capture. Ramirez, who had been living in the shadows, was about to be cast into the harsh light of justice. It all began when Ramirez was spotted in East Los Angeles by a group of elderly women. They recognized him from a police sketch that had been widely circulated in the media. The women, without a second thought, alerted the authorities. But Ramirez, always a step ahead, sensed danger and fled. He attempted to steal a car to make his escape, but fate had other plans. His face, now known to the public, was his downfall. A man named Manuel de la Torre, whose car Ramirez was trying to steal, fought back. A struggle ensued, attracting the attention of the neighborhood. The residents, having recognized Ramirez from the news, came together and chased him down, refusing to let the terror continue. Ramirez, out of breath and out of options, was cornered in a residential neighborhood. The crowd, their anger fueled by the fear they had been living in, descended on him. They held him at bay until the police arrived, effectively ending the reign of the Night Stalker. It was a moment of triumph for the city of Los Angeles. The public had played a pivotal role in capturing a man who had eluded the police for so long. Their collective courage had triumphed over the fear Ramirez instilled in them. The capture of Richard Ramirez marked a turning point in the city's history. It demonstrated the power of public vigilance and the strength of a community united against a common enemy. Finally, the Night Stalker was in custody. His reign of terror was over, and the city of Los Angeles could start healing from the wounds inflicted by this monster. Scene script. Richard Ramirez stood trial for his heinous crimes. The trial of Richard Ramirez would become one of the most notorious in American history. The evidence presented was as chilling as the crimes themselves. The prosecution meticulously laid out the timeline of terror, detailing each gruesome act, the break-ins, the murders, the violations of human dignity. The weapons used, the handguns, the knives, the tire iron, became symbols of a reign of terror that had gripped Los Angeles. The court heard about the occult symbols that Ramirez left at his crime scenes, his signature of sorts. The pentagrams, symbols often associated with the occult, were presented as evidence of a twisted psyche, a man who reveled in the fear he instilled. Ramirez's demeanor during the trial was as unsettling as the evidence against him. There was no remorse, no regret, only a chilling indifference. He often wore sunglasses in court, a barrier between himself and the world, a declaration of his disconnect from the horrors he perpetrated. The defense, meanwhile, found itself in an uphill battle. With the weight of the evidence and the public sentiment against them, they tried to present Ramirez as a product of a troubled upbringing, a man shaped by his environment. But the jury wasn't swayed. The crimes were too horrific, the pain inflicted too deep. The trial lasted over a year, a grueling process that brought to light the depths of Ramirez's depravity. It was a story that kept the nation on edge, a real-life horror story unfolding in the courtroom. And then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The jury delivered its verdict, a decision that would finally bring a sense of closure to a city that had been living in fear. The verdict was in. The Night Stalker was sentenced to death. The courtroom erupted, relief washing over faces that had been etched with worry for far too long. But this was not a moment of celebration, but of somber reflection, a reminder of the darkness that had once stalked their city. Richard Ramirez may be gone, but his legacy of terror remains. Ramirez, the man who once cast a dark shadow over the city of angels, met his end in a prison cell in 2013, not at the hands of justice, but due to natural causes. Despite his departure from this world, the chilling memories of his crimes remain, forever etched into the hearts and minds of those who lived through his reign of terror. The survivors, the families of the victims, and the city that bore witness to his monstrous acts still carry the scars of his deeds. His victims were not just those whose lives he brutally took, but also the countless others who lived in constant fear, their sense of safety forever shattered. They were mothers and fathers who were forced to confront the unimaginable horrors that lurked in the darkness. They were children who grew up with an eerie understanding of the evil that men can do. The city of Los Angeles, once a beacon of dreams and opportunities, was transformed into a city living in fear. The Night Stalker's reign of terror forced a city of millions to lock their doors, look over their shoulders, and question the safety of their own homes. Ramirez's fascination with the occult added another layer of dread to his crimes. His signature, the pentagram, became a symbol of his reign, a chilling reminder of his presence. This fascination not only amplified the fear surrounding his crimes, but also left a lingering stigma on the occult, tainting its image for years to come. Ramirez's legacy serves as a grim reminder of the human capacity for evil. It underscores the importance of vigilance, of community, and of the indomitable spirit of a city that, despite being pushed to the brink, refused to succumb to fear. The city of angels was forever scarred by the reign of the Night Stalker. But it is also a testament to its resilience, a city that stood up against the darkness and continues to shine, refusing to be defined by the horrors of its past.